Hi, it's Money44 here, and today I would like to invite you to the review of the SA-FX01 replica by Specna Arms. The replica was provided for review by Gunfire. Link to the replica in the video description. SA-FX01 is the well-known Specna X series only in the Flex version. The same body we know from the Edge version and compatibility with ARP standard magazines only in polymer, light in weight and wallet-friendly Flex version. Apart from the obvious differences, such as the materials from which the body and the front are made, the only thing that catches the eye is the designed by Specna Arms light stock, instead of the PDW stock. Specna Arms with the Flex series aims at the more budget entry level, so let's see what we can expect from the replica, see how it's built and what functions it has. We will disassemble it, look inside and check its performance. But as usual, we'll start with a small unboxing. In a colorful cardboard box with a transport handle we will find a leaflet with the safety rules and a QR code for the user manual, a leaflet with a Specna Arms offer, sticker set, ramrod, high cap magazine, Wicker M19 spring, and the SA-FX01 replica itself. Let's take a closer look at it. The replica measures 67 cm with the stock folded, and when fully extended its length reaches 75 cm, which makes it very compact. The replica itself without the magazine and the battery weighs only a little over 1.8 kg. The replica is almost entirely made of polymer reinforced with nylon fiber, which ensures high durability and low weight. And so from polymer parts we have the front, receiver, magazine release, pistol grip, sights, stock guide and the stock itself, while metal parts are the outer barrel with the flash hider, push dot sling inserts, trigger, selector, bolt release and charging handle, and all screws, pins and springs. Going from the front of the replica, we'll find a flash hider, which we can of course unscrew, and underneath it there is a standard 40mm counterclockwise thread that allows us to install accessories such as sound suppressors or tracer units. The short polymer front is in the M-LOK standard, so we can easily mount dedicated accessories or wrist rails on it. On the front there are also 4 places for mounting the sling in the push dot style. At the top of the front we'll find a wrist rail that goes in the rail on the body. The height difference between them is almost imperceptible. Here we'll also find foldable and adjustable sides designed by Specna Arms. The front side can be adjusted vertically, and the rear side is adjusted horizontally. It also has 2 hole sides to choose from. They can of course be uninstalled. Going further, we come across a polymer receiver designed by Specna Arms. It is exactly the same modern design as in the case of the X-Edge series, with the difference that it's made of polymer and has one-sided fire selector. In addition to the selector markings on the body, we also find a small Specna Arms logo with the inscription X series, caliber designation and serial number. On the other side, under the shell ejector, there is the inscription Specna Arms Industries. After pulling back the charging lever, the dummy bolt will move back, giving us access to the rotary hop-up chamber. Turning the knob up reduces the hop-up power, and by turning it down, we increase it. Interestingly, the replica has a working bolt catch. After setting the hop-up, just press the button on the left side of the receiver and the dummy bolt will return to its place. The magazine release is located centrally, so it can be used with both the right and left hand. The magazine from the set inserts easily and sits with slight wobble. The replica is of course compatible with magazines from other manufacturers in the standard, such as the Well WE01A magazine seen here. The SMAC high cap magazine from the set has a small window at the top for loading BBs and a knob at the bottom for winding up the BB feeding mechanism. Full winding is not enough to fire a full magazine. The selector itself moves without much resistance and clearly jumps in firing modes. By default we have safe, semi, and full auto. Due to the fact that the replica has a classic contact, the trigger breaks at the end of the movement and has a clear, quite long reset. The pistol grip has a quick access system to the motor. Just squeeze the base on the both sides, open the flap, pull out the pressure plate, and we have access to the motor. A useful function if the wires from the motor fall off during the game. The light stock design by Specna Arms is very narrow and, as the name suggests, light. It has rubberized elements that make aiming more comfortable and a place for a push-dot sling mount. We have as many as 6 set points. To install the battery, we need to get to the stock guide, so remove the stock itself. To do this, I have to grab this visible pin, pull it completely down, and then I can slide the stock off the guide. Here you'll find the wiring ending with a small Tamiya plug. I could fit a 7.4 volt 1200 mAh pack in the guide, as well as the 11.1 1300 mAh one. Due to the fact that my LiPods have a TDS plug, I had to use additional adapter, but even with it I had no problem putting the stock back on, but I have limited length adjustment. However, if we need more space for the battery, there is nothing stopping us from installing another stock in the AR-15 standard, such as the heavy stock from Specna Arms. The replica also includes the SA quick spring change system, and it works as follows. After removing the stock, I have access to the screw in the guide. After unscrewing it, I can slide the guide to the side and gain access to the main spring guide. I use an Allen key to push in and turn the guide by 90 degrees, so I can pull it out along with the spring and replace it with another one. The replica in hands, thanks to its compact construction, makes a good impression. It is slightly flexible at the point of contact between the receiver and the stock guide, like in any other polymer replica. The only loose elements in my case are the front, which I will come back to it in a moment, and a standard play on the stock, in this case very small. We know how the replica is built and what functions it has. Let's see how it is disassembled and what's inside. I start disassembling the replica by unscrewing the front pin screw and taking it out. Then I can remove the upper receiver by sliding it forward. The charging lever catches on the shell, so I have to move it back a bit. We'll deal with the lower in a moment, but first let's take a look at the upper. To remove the barrel and the chamber, simply slide it back. The rotary chamber, standard for Specna Arms, is made of polymer. The standard hop-up backing is made of quite hard rubber. In my opinion, it could be softer. It will provide better performance, which we'll check in a moment. The knob is quite soft and is glued to the arm with the grease. The replica is equipped with an aluminum precision barrel with a length of 235 mm and a diameter of 6.03 mm. Time to take a look at the lower. I start by removing the stock. Then I unscrew the stock guide and remove it. Now I remove the guide along with the mainspring. The guide has a metal base and a polymer cone, no bearings. The spring itself is around M110 and has a standard coil pitch. I also removed the metal plate. It's a pity that it's the version without sling mounts. Now it's time for the pistol grip. I start by opening the grip. I take out the pressure plate. I remove the connectors on the motor and I can remove the motor itself. It is so-called advanced motor with very weak magnets. I unscrew 4 screws and I can remove the entire grip. The next step is to remove the trigger pin and the rear pin. Now I can lift the shell and pull out the dummy bolt release button. Then I set the selector to semi and I can pull out the shell up. The shell itself is well known to us from the Flex series. Let's take a closer look. I remove the 9 Phillips screws and I can look inside. There is enough grease in the shell where it should be. The front of the shell has rounded cylinder window corners, which should reduce the chance of damaging the shell in this place. Steel bushings with a diameter of 8 mm are mounted in the shell. The gears are shimmed well. I noticed greater play on the spur gear. Despite the thick grease, they spin quite nicely. The gears themselves are standard sintered gears with a gear ratio of 18:1. The sector gear has a D layer, the spur gear is standard, and the bevel gear has 4 anti-return teeth. Due to the fact that the replica is equipped with a classic contacts, there is also mechanical trigger safety. When it comes to pneumatics, we have a polymer piston with a full metal rack. On its front there is a ventilated polymer piston head without bearings. The replica has a Type 2 aluminum cylinder installed. As you can see, there is some grease in it. The tappet plate is quite flexible. The polymer cylinder head is a brass nozzle and a rather hard rubber bumper. The polymer nozzle does not have a sealing O-ring and its length is 21.25 mm. Pneumatics without the nozzle have no problem passing the syringe test. The seal is perfect. But because the nozzle does not have an O-ring, it does not provide seal with it. The angle of engagement of the sector gear relative to the piston is absolutely okay for a stock replica. The replica is equipped with the same non-standard selector plate as in the SA-FX02 and the SA-E09RH, which I reviewed earlier on the channel. From now on, I would like to show you two more new things in the reviews. The first one is the side play on the hop-up chamber. The smaller the better. This is quite good for a stock replica. The second novelty is the test of the replica's alignment. Its purpose is to check whether the nozzle is aligned with the barrel. The better the alignment, the less chance of problems with feeding and less chance of air loss during the shot. Here, as you can see, it's quite good because the nozzle is almost in the center of the barrel. Before we move to the shooting test, let's go back to the front for a moment. In my case, it moves slightly sideways under load. To compensate for this, I just had to tighten the screws under the front. After tightening them, the front stopped moving and even a stronger attempt to rotate it had no effect on it, so it will definitely not turn during the game. However, I decided to check at what point it will give up and I used all my strength, but I forgot that the front has a protrusion and when it finally gave in, I broke it on the left side. During normal use there is no chance that you will put so much force on the front after tightening it, so I wouldn't consider it as a problem. So let's see what kind of performance we can expect. Chrono and shooting tests were performed before disassembling the replica. I performed the test on 0.25 grams Specna Arms HBBs and a Turnigy Nanotech 7.4V 1200 mAh battery. With the hop-up adjusted to the weight of the BBs, the replica achieved an average of 1.16 joules or 317.9 FPS. The spread between the lowest and the highest result reached up to 13.3 FPS or 0.10 joules. The rate of fire was about 10 BBs per second. Using the weaker M19 spring from the set, the replica achieved an average of 0.75 joules or 255.7 FPS, and the dispersion increased to over 18 FPS. The rate of fire was almost 12 BBs per second. With a stronger spring, you can use 11.1 volt battery with a rate of fire of 19 BBs per second. In case of weaker spring, double shots appear on the semi. Shooting tests were performed with support using 0.25 grams Specna Arms HBBs and 11.1 volt 1300 mAh battery. At distance of 30 meters, hitting a target with a diameter of 60 centimeters was no problem. From 40 meters the situation was very similar, but here I missed only 3 times out of 21 shots. At 50 meters it was much worse. The spray had become quite large, but a hit was still possible. I will define the effective range as 40 meters and the maximum range at 50 meters. I will come back to Chrono for a second, because I was curious why such a large spread, since the seal of the system is quite good for a replica with a nozzle without sealing. And after shooting test, I decided to install a softer hop-up backing, or more specifically an ENL backing. With it on the stronger spring, I achieved an average result of 1.26 joules or 329.4 FPS and dispersion of only 4.4 FPS. So apparently the problem was the factory backing. The SA-FX01 is a light polymer replica that will work well in a CQB environment due to its weight, performance and a small size. The build quality is at a very good level. The motor design known from the X-Edge series is complemented by an original light stock. The replica has a quick spring replacement system and a quick access to the motor. And interestingly, compared to other replicas from the Flex series, it also has a working dummy bolt release. The installed internal parts are known to us from the other replicas from the Core and Flex series, and as you can remember from my SA-C21 meltdown, they can withstand a lot, because then the replica gave up only after 34,000 shots in a row, and it was only this mainspring and the tappet plate spring. The replica has a precision barrel with a diameter of 603mm and a rotary hop-up chamber. The whole thing gave me about 1.16 joules on a stronger spring and an effective range of 40 meters, so the parameters are perfect for CQB. The only thing I could complain about is the obvious large FPS spread on the stock backing in my example. Fortunately, replacing it with an ENL backing eliminated this problem. If you like the Edge X series replicas but they were beyond your budget, or you're looking for something light for CQB that is not another M4, then the SA-FX01 may be an interesting choice. The replica can be used straight from the box, but it will also be susceptible to modifications due to the fact that there are the same parts inside as in other Specna Arms replicas. The only non-starter part is the selector plate, and apart from that, the replica takes everything, so to speak. To be honest, for me, the only thing missing is a nice MOSFET, and it's a pity that mine has such large FPS spread. Let me know how you like today's review, whether the information about chamber stiffness and alignment is useful information for you, and whether I should show it in the subsequent reviews. And of course, what do you think about the X series in the Flex version, on the example of the SA-FX01. And for now, thanks for watching and see you next time.